Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
On today's episode, there's a grim mood of despair as we look back on United's defeat to Harrogate, which makes it 12 games without a win in the league for the Blues. And we look ahead as in-form Walsall make the trip up the M6, looking to pile more misery on Keith Millen's boys. Oh, Mike. All that optimism we had on the journey back after Exeter. Anyone who's listened to our little road trip episode will know we felt, you know what, you never know, maybe we just started to turn that corner slightly. And then you see that last night against Harrogate.
Yeah.
It's not good, is it?
No. Although someone said to me, don't be too down when you think of how many Southern away trips there are in the National League next year, because we'll only be in there for a year, because we'll be in the National League North the following year.
Yeah. Well, we'll have Spennymoor Town will be our local derby.
Yeah.
That's depressing enough of a thought, isn't it? God almighty. I don't know. It just feels like one thing after another, and there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency from the people at the top of Brunton Park. There's no sense of, oh shit, we're in a bad situation here. It's more like, oh well. It's a shrug of the shoulder. It's basically the Brunton Park board is the Alan Partridge shrug gif in a human form. That's what
pretty much. Yeah, it's. But I mean, the whole thing, because David Holdsworth has famously said now, didn't he, that he's more concerned about the salt and pepper on his fish and chips or whatever. I mean, first of all,
what kind of a freak puts pepper on the salt and chip?
Well, exactly, that's bad enough. But I think that's been taken out of context, and maybe that the case isn't that he's like not worried about us going down. The case is that he's having a full-on meltdown and a crisis about his fish and chip situation. Yeah,
it may well be that. Teflon Dave, as he shall forever be known. Let's get into the news then, Mike. Just a couple of little bits to say today. First up, ticket details for the Shrewsbury Cup tie. They've been confirmed by the club. Basically, it's exactly the same as the Horsham game in terms of the prices. It's about £14 on the day, £14 in advance, £16 on the day. Basically, for adults, and all the ones are a bit cheaper.
I think it'll be interesting, the attendance for that one. I really do.
It's strange because we're playing League One side, but it's not the most glamorous League One side, but you'd still expect an okay attendance. I'm teetering on whether even I go. I'm not 100% whether I can be bothered.
No, I think season ticket holders for league games, they've kind of got the excuse, well, I've paid for my ticket, I've kind of got to go.
And for the Horsham game, it was half price because of the first round of the Cups. You get that, don't you?
Yeah. But even then, you know, you're still paying for a ticket, aren't you? And, you know, last night we weren't far off dipping below 3,000. Obviously, it's a Tuesday, but...
Tuesday Champions League on and being in appalling form. It's a recipe for disaster in sense of crowds, but there you go. Yeah. So, as I mentioned there, obviously, unlike the Horsham game, there's no half-price option for season ticket holders, so... Whether you want to go and see us up against an attack with Ryan Bowman and Sam Cosgrove, I don't know. That'll be a fun one anyway, but... Only other bit of news. It's actually a bit of sad news. It's the passing of Joe Laidlaw. Blues legend Joe. He's passed away at the age of 71. He was part of the United side that reached the promised land of the First Division in the mid-1970s, and he would go on actually to be United's top scorer in the top flight with 12 goals, including a twice taken penalty in a famous 3-0 win over Everton at Brunton Park. He began his career at Middlesbrough before signing for United in 1972, and he quickly became a fan's favourite with his hard-working performances in midfield and on the wing. He would go on to make 168 appearances at all competitions, scoring 46 goals over 4 seasons before moving to Doncaster. After leaving Donny, he joined Portsmouth, where he was also a bit of a popular sort of cult legend figure. He was a club captain of their side, I think, that won promotion from the old Third Division back then. He later had spells at Hereford and Mansfield Town before retiring and enjoying a brief spell managing in non-league football down south. So we pass on our condolences to his family. Yeah. Sad to see another name from that famous side passing away. Right, let's move on to the match review then. Mike, sorry. Where do you start? United's barren run And the league continues as they make it 12 games without a win and set a new club record of 5 consecutive home league fixtures without scoring. As Harrogate ran out 2-0 winners at Brunton Park, I mean, well, again, arguably United played better than they have in many games this season. They just look toothless in attack, devoid of any sort of belief or confidence as well. Desperate times for the Blues, and it's time for those higher up in the club to start fronting up as well. I mean, you obviously didn't watch this, Mike, because you were working, but you did listen on the radio, and obviously I heard the radio commentary because I was watching iFollow, and it just wasn't great, was it? Let's be honest.
No, I mean, they seemed quite optimistic sort of first half, until we conceded, and it's just sort of, I think it must be hard for the players psychologically. I know it's easy for us to say, oh, the heads just dropped, but, when it's a case of, oh, here we go again, and yeah, it's,
I saw a comment from someone, I think it was online, saying that we're playing in a first goal league and we're never ever capable of getting that first goal.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
The thing. Yeah.
That's the problem. We're just, as soon as we go behind, you don't think to yourself, well, we can still get into this. You think to yourself, that's game over.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I feel at home as well. I mean, I'm not knocking anyone for this. I'm guilty of this myself. But when we concede at home, it's just the feeling around the ground is just, here we go again. And there isn't that, I don't know, determination.
There's only so long that the fans can lift the players, though.
Exactly.
If it happens again and again and again, there's a feeling of, well, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had it. I mean, this is going back a good few years now, but we've had numerous home games that we've sort of been 2 down at half time and the crowd have really got behind the players. And we've turned it around and won 3-2, but it's just not like that anymore, is it? It's just
these players don't have the belief to do that. They don't.
No, exactly.
They work hard. I'm not doubting that they don't work hard, but they do not have. There's no belief to go with that hard work. The amount of times that they sort of, a lot of it's half-hearted. Not so much the challenges, but more the playing the passes and running with it. And like the amount of times that Lumsden was getting on the commentary, was getting frustrated because Clough was turning back and playing the ball back, and it's like, you've played in the Championship. You were a star player in the Championship for Bolton. Where's your belief that pick up the ball and go, right, I'm going to try and thread a pass here. I'm going to try something. There's nothing there. Never is.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, Gibson kind of stands out like a sore thumb because he's the one who's constantly trying to make things happen. Do you know what I mean? And not many others you could say that about.
Maybe Dickinson at a push. I mean, I've got that down as a talking point for later. Let's talk about sort of the game itself then, Mike. I mean, when the teams came out, we weren't massively surprised. Basically, suspensions injury meant this was more or less, with the exception of maybe Devine for Charters or maybe Devine for Clough. Charters for Clough. Pretty much the only team you were going to pick with who was fit, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
The thing that stands out is when you look at that bench, isn't it? I mean, that's an inexperienced young bench there.
Yeah, it really is.
Those young lads to come on and actually do something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Did we have any non-injured players missing out on the matchday squad?
I don't think so, no, because Lewis Bell came onto the bench. He's the only one who's missed out. I mean, you'd argue Keelan Leslie, but he's a first-year pro. He's barely featured, has he, really, to be honest? And you'd imagine he'll be gone in the new year, probably. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there, we actually started the game okay. It was a scrappy match early on, and we actually could have scored when Young hit the angle of post and bar. I mean, it was a smart header. There's not much more he could have done to direct it because it was sort of back flicked header rather than an actual, trying to nod it towards goal. He was sort of directing the cross as much as he could towards goal. So there's an argument maybe he should have done better with the follow-up, but then maybe Mellor got in his way as the ball came in then. It's one of those ones, isn't it? He's got to take these chances.
Yeah, definitely. And, you take your chances. Harrogate would have to open up a bit more as well. And we're not in a position where we can afford to miss chances like that, certainly. No,
certainly not. I mean, bar that, really, first half-wise. A couple of long-range efforts from Gibson where the keeper pretty much had them covered. There wasn't really a huge concern for them there. And I mean, Harrogate probably came the closest to scoring when Muldoon was completely unmarked in the 6-yard box, and I think he just panicked. I think he was half expecting the flag to go up, half expecting someone to actually be there to stop him, and he ended up more or less chesting the ball back to Howard, who nearly spilled it into the net. He was that surprised. And then came the... I put down sucker punch here, but I suppose it's not really sucker punch because they still had threats and, they weren't totally out of the game, Harrogate, and it's such a poor goal to concede. You'll have seen the highlights now, haven't you, Mike?
Yeah.
Dickinson's got... I know he's not a left-back, really. I mean, he's played there in the past, but he's a left winger these days. He's got to be stronger there. He's got to really believe... It's almost like he's going in for the tackle, and he's already got in his mind how he's going to go on the break. Rather than actually thinking, I just need to take out the man. I need to get the ball in the man, completely crunch the pair of them, and then just get rid of it. Something like that in that situation. Instead, his brain's half thinking, what can I do to get away? It's like he thinks he's still playing left midfield, but actually he's left back. The lad gets in, and it is smart finish, to be fair. And what we could do with a player who could actually do that, finish like that, because you never get the belief when someone's in the box, does it, that they're going to finish across the keeper and score like that, do you?
No, exactly. In fact, you could argue we had better chances than that.
Yeah, we had much more clear-cut chances than both their goals, probably, and we messed them up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing you don't disagree much with the assessment there on the first goal.
No, yeah, I think you've covered it. Obviously, it's a shame that Armour's injured and hopefully he's fit again soon, because he seemed to have turned a little bit of a corner before that injury at Exeter.
Yeah, he's looked a little bit sharper. I thought he looked all right against Exeter. And, it's one of those ones I've not actually watched back the tackle yet, but Millen seems to suggest it was quite a bad tackle on him.
It wasn't in the highlights, was it? So,
no. But there you go. Actually reacted quite well at half time, to be fair. They came out a lot stronger. We actually had a real good go at them. We put them under pressure. But there was always a feeling of, are we actually going to get this goal? Are we going to get back into it? I mean, Young's got a great chance. I mean, this is one of the few good bits that Guy actually did in the game. He won the ball back and drove forward from midfield. He had Guy on the right and Abrahams on the left. With hindsight, probably Abrahams was the better pick because he was even in more space than Young was. Young had a defender sort of close to him and the keeper bearing down. But I can see why Guy's gone for him because he's a lot nearer and he's pretty much in on goal. He didn't get the ball off his feet, did he? When you look back at it.
But again, it's picking the safest option. It's not having the confidence to maybe go for the slightly more difficult pass that would nearly guarantee a goal.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm not sure he actually even saw Abrahams, to be honest. I think his eyes were always on Young because Young was ahead of him and he was screaming for the ball. And you can understand why he's played it. But this is the thing. Young works hard. He's a real hard worker, and I like that about him. And I think he could be... He's probably going to have a pretty decent career. But we've got to remind ourselves, he's not much older than Sam Fishburne. He's 18 years old, and we're expecting him to come in and drag us out of trouble. I don't think that's very fair on him as much as anything. And for him, he's going to have to start getting used to thinking, I've got to get a shot away quickly here. I haven't got time to get out on my feet. I'm just going to have to improvise. I'm just going to have to smash it. He tried to almost side foot and place it. You're not in the under 23s anymore. You're going to get crunched by goalkeepers. You're going to
it's
have
almost like he had too much time to think about it. It wasn't sort of an instinctive thing.
Yeah,
for him.
It's one of those ones. I feel like if he gets a goal, he could actually get a few. I'm not saying he's going to go and score 10 or 20, but I think he'd go on an okay run if he actually got a league goal. But it's just not falling for him right now.
No.
After that, two great chances for Clough. Actually, I mean, first was some brilliant footwork to skip past a few defenders, but it's one of those ones again. Just lever it. He's trying to place it in the bottom corner and he puts it wide. And it looked like it was quite a tight sort of angle to fit it in, if you see what I mean, because there was defenders in the way and he had to pick his spot rather than just hitting it. And you never know what's going to happen. The keeper might palm it and it comes to someone else to finish. Second one, he does the right thing. He does that. He actually just takes a touch and just hits it and the keeper just makes a good save because there wasn't anywhere else he could have placed it. And then the only other real chance was Dickinson puts a good ball across the 6-yard box to Fishburne, who's sort of just come on, and he just couldn't quite get to it. He was very Gaza against Germany-esque, wasn't it? Not quite the same. It wasn't quite as close as that. He was a bit behind it, but again, that's one of those ones that Sam will have to get used to because he's got into the right area and he's put himself in there. He just needs to be a little bit sharper in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. And Fishburne, again, I think when he gets one, that might give him a big confidence boost and a few more will probably follow.
Well, let's talk about the second goal then, Mike. Again, it's just a poor goal, isn't it? It's just a poor goal all round. I mean, it starts off, you want to take it all the way back. It comes back to Clough, where Clough basically plays a ball inside to Guy. It's not a good ball. It's overhit, and there's 2 or 3 midfielders around Guy. And suddenly, Harrogate get the ball. They're away, and Guy's already been booked at this point for a silly booking as well. He pushed the player over, and he didn't really need to try and take a quick free kick. It wasn't that long after the whistle had gone. Really stupid one to get given. And he can't really make a tackle. He can't make a cheeky little, I'm going to trip him up here to bring the attack to an end. Danny Devine has the chance to do that. He has a real good chance to do it. Basically, he's got the midfield, the player's getting away, and there's 3 players unmarked in front of him. That's where Devine should look and be a bit smarter and go, right, I'm going to haul him down here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll get booked, but the chances are I'm going to get subbed at some point anyway. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just bring him down, bring the attack to an end, regroup, have another go. But he just makes a half-hearted attempt, and player gets away, comes again to Thompson on the left. It's a decent effort. I wonder if Howard could maybe hold on to that. I don't know what you think.
No, I think you're right. I think our expectations for what to expect from a goalkeeper after Norman was pretty low, and I think Exeter's second as well, he could have maybe done a little bit better with. Yeah. I think we've been cutting him a bit of slack because he is a massive improvement on Norman, and that's still the case. But yeah, I think he could have done better there.
Yeah, I just look at it and think it's not the most powerful shot in the world. He sort of spills it. Yes, he pushes it away from Armstrong, who's sort of waiting to sort of put it in if it comes across goal. But he palms it straight out into basically to the penalty spot. And Patterson steps up, and again, Guy's a bit slow to react there. He's just standing watching, really. And
considering that Guy had a rest on the weekend as well, he should have been the freshest player on the pitch. Really.
I mean, I've put it down here for discussion later, but I think he'd be lucky to get 3 out of 10 for that performance. He was that bad. He really, really has not been the same player this season. And after what looked like an okay revival against Barrow, he looked like a bit more like the player we expected. He's back to as bad as he's been all season. Against Harrogate, it really was for me. Yeah, probably lucky it wasn't then made free. Armstrong had a good chance where McDonald did the right thing and sort of shielded the ball, and Whelan just stood off, and Armstrong nipped in, got away, and in the end Mellor got a good block in to get a corner. After that, you got one last chance where Clough plays a good ball to the far post, and McDonald does the right thing, actually. Heads it back across goal. I think on the live commentary, it's difficult for Colin and Lummy to actually judge, but McDonald does the right thing because he's got there's a defender and the keeper at the post, so getting it in there is going to be difficult. He heads it back across. It comes to Whelan, and Whelan, he just tries to sort of power it straight rather than actually just sort of flicking it and glancing it, and it would have gone in at the far post. He heads it straight, and it's straight at the keeper in the end, and the keeper doesn't really have to make too difficult a save, and yeah, that was pretty much it. I can't see where the next win's coming, Mike. I don't know about you. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we have just had 2 very tough games, and we've got some kind of distractions in the cup coming up, haven't we?
The problem is, you say 2 tough games, but in both of those games, those decent teams were not at their best. They were not at their races, really. I mean, look at Exeter midweek.
Yeah,
Colchester battered them 3-1.
Yeah.
And even when teams are not at their best, we don't look capable of beating them. And that in itself is a real worry. That's when you should think. That's when you should be right. We're not great this season, but we can take a chance here. We can nick ourselves a 1-0 win or something like that.
Yeah.
Do we look like that? Not in the slightest.
No. But I mean, slightest. Both Exeter and Harrogate are, playoff / top 3 sides. So, whereas, Walsall are a little bit more, they're more mid-table, aren't they? So that would be...
Look at the form table. They're 6th in the form table. Last 6 games, they've only lost 1 of the last 9.
Yeah, exactly.
They're moving up the table. I mean, after that, you got Mansfield. They're 8th in the form table.
I know. I mean, I said it at the time, we could really, really, really regret not doing better against Scunthorpe and Oldham at home,
Yeah.
because they are our two easiest games of the season.
There's a strong argument that we really are the poorest team in the division. I know it sounds a stupid thing to say, but sometimes you have teams that have bad runs or false things, but really, we're just not being good enough for quite a while now. And even when we play the poor teams, we look second best against them. We scabbed draws against those two teams. We scabbed draws that we did not deserve to get a point in either of those games. We were absolutely awful in them. I mean, if you look at, like I said, you look at that, obviously you've got Mansfield next, and then you've got Stevenage. By the time we play Stevenage, they'll have a new manager in. I'd fancy them to have a new manager bounce more than we've had.
Yeah.
We're 4 games in and we've got 1 point out of it. Potentially that's going to be 1 point out of 15 at the weekend.
Yeah. And, it's all good and well, people saying, just get an experienced striker in January and, an experienced defender. They're going to be wanting new players as well. It's not just us. Whether or not Oldham can, I don't know, given their situation. But yeah, it's really, really not looking good.
Yeah, it's a lethal combination right now. We've got a side that's both devoid in quality and totally lacking in confidence. If you're lacking in quality, but you've got a bit of confidence about you, you might be able to scab a win here and there. You might be able to, battle your way to a 1-0 win and just work hard and boot your way. But they never look like they believe they're going to do that.
No, exactly.
And that there's a real issue. And to be fair, Millen picked up on this in his post-match interview. He said there's a real problem in the mentality of the squad right now. They've got a losing mentality and they can't shake that off.
Exactly.
That's the terrifying thing about all this. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the manager, I mean, we don't want to be too critical on him so far, but we are 4 games in. We have only got 1 point out of it. The cup games are irrelevant. They really are irrelevant in all this. They don't mean anything for me. The Peter Trophy one, why people got so overexcited about that, I don't know. It just baffles me. And the Horsham one, well, we were lucky. We were lucky that Young managed to come on and get a goal in that game. 4 points and 1 now. There's an interesting thing. It's the guy, I think it's Dr. Steve Peters. Now, he's the psychology guy that Brendan Rodgers uses and Carlo Ancelotti uses and a lot of stuff like that. I think he's always said that if your manager hasn't turned things around within his first 10 games, you might as well sack him because he's never going to turn it around. It's a waste of time carrying on. Well, 10 games takes Millen up to the Salford game just before New Year. If we're not, and I know everyone says about, we can bring players in January, but if we're not turning it around by then, if we're not even showing any sign of turning it around, you potentially gonna have to start seriously considering that. We could have a ridiculous situation, and it's. I don't know what you do.
For me, we could have any manager in the world right now, and I think they would struggle to turn it around with these players. There's just. It's leadership is what we're desperate for. When Paul Simpson took charge of us and we were basically down and out, the players that he brought in were all leaders, all experienced heads, and they were exactly what we needed. And that's what we need this time. And my concern is that Millen, his contacts might be more on the lines of young loanees and not experienced lower league hard nuts. Do you know what I mean?
That's a big concern. And the thing is, you've got to remember, but the football landscape at this level is so much more different to what it was in 2003, 2004. Oh, yeah. Because you've got transfer windows now. Back then you didn't. You could bring in a Kevin Gray, you could bring in a Kevin Henderson, a Paul Arneson, an Andy Priest. I'm trying to think of else we brought in. We brought loads of players at that time, didn't we?
Yeah.
All those kinds of players, even a Peter Duffield, people like that. You can bring in these experienced heads anytime, really, either on short-term loans or permanently even. Now you've got to wait till January pretty much for every player that's any good.
Yeah.
And are they going to want to come all the way up to Carlisle? It's like Lumpy was saying on the radio. Actually, a lot of players, as much as it sounds ridiculous to people, will probably prefer to go to Barrow because their training base is in Manchester.
Well, that's the thing. Our location has always been a factor, but you look at our location and you look at our league position, and it's a double
We're
whammy.
going to pay a premium to convince anybody to come in. I think even then it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
I really, really do. It just everything about it at the moment is just not great. Talking about individual players there, Mike. I thought defensively, McDonald and Whelan were actually not too bad. played okay, kept them fairly quiet. But I mean, McDonald won pretty much everything in the air all night. But I mean, when it's okay to do that, then you concede a couple of scrappy goals. But then if your attack's not doing anything, you're knackered, aren't you? I mean, I think a lot of people got far too excited about Danny Devine's performance in that Peter Cup game. There's a lot of people like demanding he be put in the first team, and I don't think Millen actually helped in that sense with how he spoke about his performance in that game. He bigged it up quite a lot. Could have maybe tempered that and said, look, he's had a good game, but it's his first one back, and it's not in the intensity of a league game or something like that. That's the way you should handle it.
Well, that's the thing. Well, Lumsden said on the radio last night he had like loads of time in the ball in that cup game, and you don't get that in league games. Yeah,
we are. Sometimes when you watch games, it feels like the opposition have got one extra man. That's how slow we are on the ball at times. When there's no intensity there with it, and the number of times Devine actually got turned by the number 16 I think it was the number 16 for them. It was embarrassing, and you just think to yourself, he doesn't. I mean, fair play. He's come back from a few injuries, so he's not going to be up to the pace. But we need people up to the pace now. That's the problem. We haven't got time for people to work on their match fitness in first team games. We just haven't. I've mentioned it before, but Callum Guy was be lucky if he gets 3 out of 10 for that performance. He was so poor, and I don't think he's captain material. The more and more I watch it, I just don't see it, and I think it's one thing Miller could do. It might upset people, and maybe it's one of those things he needs to do to upset a few people. You say to Callum, I'm sorry, I'm going to take the captaincy off you. You can prove to me that I was wrong to take captaincy off you. Play like a leader in the team. That's what you should say. And this is the thing. You get an experienced head in January and give them the captaincy. But you're going to have to.
I mean, for me, with both Guy and Devine, is Taylor Charters has always looked to put a shift in whenever he's played. I'm a big fan of Taylor Charters, and I think, what are they doing to get a game ahead of Charters?
It's one of those ones I do wonder if it is just that lack of experience and they don't want to put the pressure on him. But
while he lacks experience,
it's getting to the point now. You might as well. You may as well just play him, because the rest of them aren't doing any better. And actually, I feel like he's a bit braver on the ball. He uses the ball a bit better when he has it. He doesn't look backwards as much as Devine does. So
yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't be against it.
That's the thing. I mean, I feel when he first broke through, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing for him, but he was often always trying to get an assist or always trying to create something, which as a centre mid you don't always have to do that. And like I say, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like more recently he's learned to just sort of maybe play a sideways pass here and there and just keep hold of the ball. And he'll always work his socks off for the team, which you can't say about some other players.
No, that's fair enough. I've put down Zach Clough here. I mean, marquee signing in the summer, but he's just not been up to it, has he, so far? And his little flashes last night, but a player of his quality, a player who's played at championship level, who was sold for £3 million, should be dominating games at this level. Yeah. Clearly, he's not the same player he was back then. That's fairly obvious now. And we probably got too overexcited, didn't we, about him in the summer? That's probably a fair assessment. And he's not. Is he up to the rough and tumble of League Two? I don't think he is.
No, I think he's one of them. Maybe would be better at League One level than League Two level, but
then Wigan bombed him off. So they didn't keep him. They could have done.
Well, yeah, but he'd had his injuries, hadn't he, as well? But I mean, both him and Abrams, who obviously we'll talk about next, 2-year deals, aren't they? So
stuck with them, aren't we, at the moment?
Yeah.
I mean, Abrahams, he's tried hard over the last couple of games, but he sort of slipped back into his bad habits in the second half. In this game, there's a couple of loose touches, and they're not really trying to chase down after that. He's just not good enough. He's not EFL level for me. There's a reason why Newport didn't really make an effort to keep him. There's a reason why Leighton Orient weren't that fussed about signing him permanently after he went on loan there last season. He's just not good enough. I genuinely think he's one of those ones that come January, if I was Milan, I'd be saying to him, look, if you want to find yourself a club down south, knock yourself out. We won't stand in your way. Move on.
I'd imagine as well, between them, Abrams and Clough are on a decent wage, because they were snapped up relatively early in the window as well.
I mean, I've got to ask some questions here about something that Beach said in the summer when we signed him. We said we signed him because we tried to sign him the previous summer, but he stayed at Newport, and he's a player who's got good finishing. really seen that so far. Strength, a little bit of strength, I'll give him that. Pace, that's the one that gets me every time. Where's this pace? He's not fast at all. He looks like he's running through treacle while towing a caravan half the time.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to the pace that, like, Patrick, say, had last season, different game, isn't it?
It's day and night, isn't it? He's like, the amount of times he's getting beaten by defenders with balls, you think you should at least be challenging for that. It's infuriating. It just really is. I mean, the only other ones I've picked out here in terms of the individual performance, Gibson and Dickinson, at least they're trying to create something. At least they put some decent balls into the box. At least they look like they're potentially there's something there. But they can't do it all on their own. And Gibson as well. The amount of times he felt like he had to keep coming looking for the ball, it just isn't good enough. I mean, I originally I thought we needed 2-3 experienced heads in January. I think I'd probably say near 5 or 6 now.
Yeah,
I genuinely think needs to be clear. And I think you can probably tell at least half a dozen of that squad you can leave in January. No qualms about it. Find a club, you can go. And would you be bothered if most of those players went in January?
No,
not really. Maybe
wouldn't.
Gibson, maybe Dickinson at a push, but even he's not really been that outstanding. Joe Riley, Fishburne. That's about it. The rest, good luck to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so we need to spend money in January, basically, because it's the only way we're going to get players in.
But how much do we have to spend is the question.
Well, there should be money to spend. It'll be funny, but we've built up enough money in the last couple of years, and it's easy to say, we've got this rainy day money and stuff, and yes, I know the money from Branthwaite has covered the COVID losses and stuff, but we've made the best part of £500,000 this summer signing players. But frankly, you need to spend a bit of that and get some good players in. Or you're going to lose a hell of a lot more if you go down to the National League.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the question isn't can we afford to sign, some experienced players. The question is, can we afford not to? We absolutely can't.
Which brings us on to our old friend Teflon Dave, the milk tray man himself, David Holsworth. By all accounts, I wasn't at the game. I had to watch it on iFollow. He slinked out early last night, and he's continuing to take the coward's option of remaining silent.
To be fair, though, his shift delivering milk tray started at 9:30, so he did have to get off early.
Had to get off early and get his fresh turtleneck on, didn't he? I mean, he just infuriates me, this man. Everything about him infuriates me. I mean, the fact that he's remained silent since Millen's been appointed. He's literally only made one comment when Millen was appointed, and a couple before, didn't he? He's not fronting up to the fact that we're struggling. He made that comment about not worrying about relegation, which looks like so crass now. It's crass and it's just stupid. The amount of absolute rubbish that comes out of his mouth. I mean, the fact that he said he genuinely believes our squad was stronger than last season.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even have to. All he has to say is, look, it's been a tough market this summer. We still think we've got a squad that's competitive. If he'd said that, I think people would have probably cut him more slack. But he had to go for the Billy Big Bollocks answer and say it was better than last season because he wants to be shown to be the person who's. I mean, he claims all he does is sort out the contracts, which, I mean, other people at the club can easily do. He's not a director of football. He's basically just a failed non-league manager who's riding on the coattails of his mate, essentially. That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's a joke. It's the fact that he bangs out, I made this money for the club and stuff like that. Brilliant. Well, hang on. What good is it doing us right now? As a club, competitive on the pitch, we look a mess. Crap. I mean,
but he's saying he made the money for the club. I mean, it was Beach who identified a lot of these players, and if, say, Clibbins did the negotiating the contracts that Holdsworth done,
let me remind you that we all know that Nigel Clibbins was the one who was involved when Sam Cosgrove went to Aberdeen.
Yeah,
despite the fact that he'd signed a pre-contract, we got a decent selling clause in there. That's another 200 grand we've made, by the way, this summer. We should
exactly. So trying to take the credit for that himself, when, like I say, if that was Clibbins' job, we would have probably made the same amount.
Yeah, he's been more than capable of doing it. It's ridiculous. He's done that job as a chief executive at Huddersfield. Farcical that he takes the credit for it. I mean, the sooner he's gone, the better. Quite frankly.
Yeah,
It terrifies me to think that if they supposedly takes over. Presuming that's what happened. No one seems to have a clue. No one tells us what's going on. We're all, the trusts are about as much use as a chocolate fire guard. It's we don't know what's going on. But if he takes over, then he genuinely thinks someone like Holdsworth's the man to run the club, and that worries me. That really worries me because he's shown no interest in the club as it stands anyway. To then stick him in charge.
But my concern as well is, with the Dean Henderson situation, is if he goes and we get a decent cut of money, I don't trust this lot with that kind of money. We were saying at Exeter, they're investing in new training facilities, this, that, and the other. I'd like to think. I don't know what to do with it. I'd like to think
that the best thing that the owners could do if that money just come in, let's say by some miracle, Newcastle buy Dean Henderson for £50 million in January, right? Let's say we're due 10% of that. That's £5 million. Take the £2 million that's out to PUPA, EWM, whatever you call them, give them it and just tell them to F off. And tell Holdsworth, thanks very much, we're going another direction. Bin him off as well. Start again, and then actually put the club up for sale and say, look, the debt's cleared, there's no debt in this club now. Who's going to come in and buy it?
Yeah.
Make sure you get the right person.
Is 130 odd million on Friday.
Is it? Well,
as well. Just if everyone listening can get a ticket, maybe one of us will.
You never know. We've ranted for far longer than I intended in that game, right, Mike? Yeah. Just everything. I just feel angry about it. I'm not even going to the game on Saturday, and I just, I'm not bothered. That's how bad it is. Right. Anyway, let's have a little break now, then, Mike, and then we'll discuss the Walsall game.
Hi, this is George Tanner. You are listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Oh, George. Oh, that's depressing, isn't it, to think?
Did you press that button on purpose?
Yeah, I put that one on purpose just to make a point, but there you go. Right, so we're into the second half of the show, and as usual, it's the preview section, and it's sponsored by the Carl United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carl United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course, every part of London and the South East, and up in Cumbria as well. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events and supporters games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlislelondonbranch.org. There you go, Mike. So up next, we've got the catching up with the opposition section. And this week we spoke to Tom from the One Pod Beyond podcast ahead of this weekend's game at Brunton Park. Topics covered include how Matt Taylor has settled in as Walsall boss after a slow start, why the Saddlers have stagnated so much since coming down to League Two, when will the social club at the Bescott Stadium open again, and any fond memories they might have of David Holdsworth, because we don't have any fond ones ourselves. So there you go. So here's the chat I had with Tom. Tom, thanks for giving up your time to speak to us today about all things Walsall. Let's get straight into it. So, I mean, you guys have now been back in League Two for 3 seasons now. You were relegated in 2019 after 12 seasons in League One, but you seem to, up until now, you seem to have really stagnated at this level. Why has that been the case?
Yeah, I think a few managerial appointments where we appointed Darryl Clark when we came into League Two. Everyone thought that was a good appointment. He was probably he was our favourite for the job on the podcast. A lot of fans were behind that appointment. His record at Bristol Rovers seemed really good, but it just didn't work out for him. And as you say, we sort of we stagnated. It wasn't helped. Obviously by the pandemic, and then he had to sell a couple of our best players in the January transfer window. Emmanuel Adebayo, who is now at Luton, doing really well in the Championship. So we lost our main goal threat, and then of course soon after that, Clark jumped ship himself to Port Vale. Who coincidentally we played last night. And I think there was a big reset at the club, basically. I think Lee Pomlett, who had only been in charge as chairman, post that relegation, taking over from Jeff Bonser, who'd been there for, decades. And I think, he probably underestimated the size of the task. Yeah. And employing such a sort of, egotistical, shall we say, manager as Clark probably wasn't the best idea. And I think he sort of was a bit, had his fingers burnt, bought into Clark, and then Clark let him down by jumping ship as soon as things started going badly. And there's been a real reset since then. We've got Jamie Fullerton in as director of football, and along with Matt Taylor, who's come in his first sort of role as a manager. He came from the under-23s at Tottenham. And you know, there are slowly signs this season that we're turning the ship around. And you know, I think at the moment most fans are a little bit more optimistic than they were sort of 7 or 8 games ago.
Yeah, it just seems that things have started to pick up. I mean, just coming back obviously to the bit about the relegation stuff. There was a few sort of off-the-field issues at your club, wasn't there, in recent years, I seem to remember. I don't know the full details, but I seem to remember there was some issues in relation to the ground as well and things like that. And I mean, one question a lot of our fans have been asking every time they've been down to the Bescott Stadium in recent years is, what's happened to the social club? Because we always used to love going in there before games, but it's been closed for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, the social club's a strange story. It was sort of taken over by a group of West Brom fans who, I mean, I'll have to be careful what I say, but under their stewardship, it didn't go well, shall we say. And effectively, the club had to, take over control of it again, effectively shut it. And I think now it's going to take a lot of money to get it back up and running. So, you know, it's probably not a priority yet. It's, a lot of fans miss it. Although for home fans, certainly there is still a facility in the big stand and also in the main stand as well. But yeah, for visiting supporters, I can understand how that is a big miss.
Yeah. See, you mentioned they had a bit of a slow start to the season under Taylor, but it seems things have really picked up in the last month or so, don't they? How was actually he settled into the job as boss? It's obviously his first full-time role, isn't it? He came from, was it Tottenham under-18s? I seem to think he was at last. Yeah,
it was the Tottenham under-21s, or one of the youth teams at Tottenham's anyway. Yeah. So yeah, his first job in management. Things didn't start brilliantly. I mean, we were really struggling to keep clean sheets, but we've got 5 clean sheets in the last 8 games now. And that seems to be the way he's building. You know, I think we've won our last 4 away games, which doesn't bode well for you on Saturday. We seem to like playing away at the moment. You know, a great 1-0 win on Tuesday night against Port Vale. And our old manager Darryl Clark, and it seems to be built on, you know, a really strong back 4, getting a goal and then defending that lead. We're much worse if we go a goal down. You know, chasing a game seems to expose our limitations, but defending a lead, we're absolutely fine.
You've got nothing to worry about this weekend then, based on the way we're playing at the moment. Scoring goals is well, I think it's 5 home games in a row now that we haven't managed to score in the league. So if you can get 1-0 up, I'd get the deck chairs out. That's the way we're playing this season. Who would you say the key men in your squad that we need to look out for? I mean, we had a look at before, and I think George Miller's someone who always impresses in the past, but his career seemed sort of stagnate in a weird way when he was at Borough and Barnsley, but seems to be picking up with you guys. And obviously Connor Wilkinson was excellent last season at Orient, but he hasn't quite hit the same heights for you yet, has he?
No, I mean, he struggled with injury, to be honest. He's had a couple of different injuries, but he's a really interesting player. Sort of sits on the wing. You would imagine he would be a sort of, you know, with his build, he'd be a target man, but that's not his game at all. He sits on the right wing, comes inside and loves to beat a goalkeeper at their near post. He's all about getting a shot off unexpectedly. So yeah, I mean, Wilkinson's done okay. Miller's done well, although he's going through a bit of a drought at the moment. It's 6 games without a goal, and you know, he's asked to play that lone front man role, which can occasionally seem to frustrate him a little bit. But he will absolutely run all day for you. And then we've got 3 players in behind him who can score goals as well. So it's probably the stars at the moment are the 2 centre halves, Manny Monthe, who most lower division fans will know from his time at Tranmere and various other clubs. And he's partnered with Roland Meniesi, who we've actually got on loan from Mansfield, which was a decision that baffled a lot of Walsall fans. He's probably been our best defender this season so far, and everyone's praying that he doesn't get recalled in January. But yeah, they're two players to watch out for. They've been absolute rocks at the back recently.
That's quite interesting, because you've also got obviously Ash Taylor that you said in the summer, didn't you, as well? And Matt Sadler's been around the block for quite a while. So the fact that those two are your main centre backs is shows you've got strength and depth in that position as well.
Yeah, I mean, Sadler hasn't really played at all, unless it's been in the sort of Papa John's Trophy games. Yeah. He's much more of a coach these days.
Okay.
Although he helped out a lot last season when we were struggling with injuries at centre half. And Taylor hasn't played at all, following a sort of or very rarely following a disastrous game at Hartlepool, where he was sort of almost single-handedly responsible for us losing the game. So Taylor was one of our more heralded summer signings, but has sort of disappeared onto the bench recently. And Monthe and Menezes have made the two centre half spots their own.
One other signing that stood out to me that you made in the summer was from Newport, Josh Labadie. How's he getting on? Because he's a player who's had his discipline problems in the past, I think it's fair to say, at other clubs, but he's one of those players you always look and think, he'd be an absolute nuisance to play against, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's already been suspended twice.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, he got sent off at Bradford, which he could, consider himself slightly unfortunate for, and then accrued 5 yellows quite quickly after that, coming back from that suspension. So was suspended against Harrogate which coincidentally is the one game or perhaps not coincidentally, the one game in the last 8 or 9 that we haven't managed to win or draw. So Labadie's a class act, basically. I mean, he's a leader. He's what we've been crying out for, and there's an element of the dark arts about him as well.
Oh, yeah.
He winds opposition players up. He winds opposition fans up. And he just loves being involved in everything, basically. And he sort of makes us tick this season, which is something we've definitely been missing.
Yeah. Before we get on to prediction for this weekend, Tom, I've got to ask you about a man who's not too popular at our club. He had a short loan spell with you. Do you have any memories of David Holsworth from his time at your club?
I have absolutely no memories of David Holsworth.
Let's leave it at that then. Let's leave it at that. The less said about that man, the better. Well, let's get on to the predictions then, Tom. I mean, we're not confident about this one, but I don't know how you feel about it.
I mean, it's interesting. Like I say, we've won our last 4 away games. We're not conceding many goals at the moment. So, I mean, I would have to go for our favourite 1-0 scoreline at the moment. I think if we get our noses in front, then we just don't look like conceding at the moment.
Well, we don't look like scoring, so I think that's a perfect mix for you guys. I think it's fair to say this weekend. Tom, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All the best.
Thanks again, Tom, for giving up his time to speak to us. Things picking up really for Walsall at the moment, aren't they, Mike? They're finding a little bit of form just at the right time, really, after that slow start. So let's get on to this weekend's game. First up, let's talk about the officials. This weekend, the referee is Scott Oldham from Lancaster. It's Oldham's 5th season as a EFL referee, and he's taken charge of 18 games so far this season. He's very card happy. He's handed out 47 bookings and 2 red cards. He last took charge of United for the 3-2 home defeat to Tranmere Rovers last season. There was only one player actually booked in that game, though, for enough. That was Tranmere's Paul Lewis. One other thing to note is one of the assistant referees this season is Joe Simpson. That's Paul Simpson's son. There you go. So Joe Simpson's going to be one of the officials this weekend. I think the other official, Ivan Stankovic, might be the famous assistant referee who was caught wearing his work shoes. Do you remember him on the touchline?
Oh, yeah.
I think that might be the one. Yeah, basically he left his boots, so basically wore a pair of smart shoes instead on the touchline, which technically wasn't against the rules apparently. So there you go. Okay, let's do the history section now. So classic clash. I'm going back I'm trying to work this out in my head now, 26 years. We're going back to the 94-95 season. We always should go back to this season, I think. A game that many saw actually at the time as a title decider in March. Walsall travelled up to Brunton Park hot on United's heels at the top of the 3rd Division table. And they actually took a first half lead in this game. Across from the right was nodded down, and Kevin Wilson, he was quite... I was watching back some highlights from other games just to try and get an idea what the best game to pick was. He always seems to score against us, Kevin Wilson. He had a real habit of doing it, I think, in the 90s. And yeah, he smashed a low shot in from the penalty spot. United's only real first half chance was a volley from David Reeves, which was well saved. And it looked like the unbeaten home record, which stretched back 14 games. God almighty. Figured out we can't score in 5 games. And back then, we 14 games into the season, we hadn't lost at home yet. Mad. It looked like it was about to come to an end, but then it was a bit of a crazy 15 minutes. I remember this game because I went to this game with my mate Graham, and his dad took us, and I would have been, trying to work this off the top of my head, I would have been 10 at this point. Yeah, just turned 10 a month earlier. And we were sat up in I think we would have been in what is now the Platinum suite, the Platinum stand, the E stand, or the D stand, one of the two. I think it might be the D, actually. And we sat there, and we had to leave early because we were going back to meet Graham's mum in town and drive back. One of those, I don't know why we had to leave early, but it's just one of those ones we decided to. We were parked on the other side of town, so it wouldn't have affected us. But anyway, we were just about to leave on the 75-minute mark, and we started to go downstairs. Suddenly, we heard the crowd get excited. Ran back up the stairs, watched at the top of the stairs as Jeff Thorpe slotted the ball through for Reeves, and yeah, he made a really sort of smart finish across the keeper. Really good goal. Crowd was going mad, and then right at the end, we were walking back to the car by this point. The referee was ready to play full time, and Reeves played a 1-2 on the edge of the box with David Curry, and then he fired a low shot into the bottom corner to drag a dramatic late winner. Yeah, so fantastic stuff, really, that game was. We'll put the YouTube highlights up of this one. It's on Jeff Jackson's channel if you haven't done already. I mean, you look at the team. Oh, it's depressing, isn't it? Cake in net, and your back four was Edmonton, Walling, Mountfield, Gallimore. What we'd give for a back four that good now.
I know.
Oh, in midfield was Steve Hayward, who came off for Jeff Thorpe, Warren Aspinall, Paul Conway, Richard Procrast, and in attack, Curry and Reeves. I mean, God almighty. That team would wipe the floor this one, for heart as much as anything. Someone like a Richard Procrast in there bundling in. And actually, something I forgot to mention when we were doing the review section is it's quite infuriating how much poorer we're on set pieces now this season. Not just the quality, the delivery was awful against Harrogate, but as well as that, you never feel like anyone's going to score from them. You don't have a Hayden in there.
There's no desire to attack it, know. I mean, Kev Gray back in the day would run through a brick wall to get on the end of a corner sometimes, and we just don't have that at all, do we?
No, we don't. We just don't. Okay, let's get onto the play for both section, Mike. There's not as many. It's surprised actually. The number we've got here is probably about the same as Exeter. I thought it'd be a bit more, but there you go. So Dan's picked out one of those players, and here is what he's got sent to us.
For the both played for both this week, I'm going to go back in time for once instead of one of the more recent ones. And it's a player who was actually born close to Walsall in West Bromwich. And he actually started his career at West Bromwich when he was in his early 20s. I am, of course, talking about Jimmy Whitehouse. Couldn't have to deal with one of him now. He had a year at West Brom, didn't really happen. Then he made a short move to Walsall, where he did okay. Got a move to Rochdale, where it started to take off for him. But it was in the early 50s when he joined Carlisle, and he basically scored a goal every 2 games, which is a cracking record. But when you think he scored 100 goals in 200 games, that's even better. I mean, yes, I know there was a lot more goals in games back then, but what would he do for someone like that now? And he passed away approximately 15 years ago, but he had a good, I think he was about 81 when he passed away, but he was certainly one of the first sort of true icons at the club. So yeah, that's Jimmy Whitehouse, who played for both.
Well, there you go. He's gone for a bit of an older one for once instead of someone fairly recent. Let's go through the full list then, Mike. Like I said, there's not many to do this time. John Allen, not Johnny Allen. There's 2 Johnny Allens or John Allens that have actually played for the Blues. This one played in something like 1908 or something like that. Very, very early. Pre-league, Cal United. This is the one I thought he might pick, but he didn't. Zigo Arenalde. He had a brilliant spell at Walsall, didn't he?
And
loved at both clubs.
Brilliant spell with us as well, yeah.
Yeah, loved by both sets of fans. Alan Ashman, he actually managed both clubs rather than played for both, but not quite so successful in his spell managing Walsall for one season. Paul Boatine, he had a bit of a spell at Walsall. Obviously started his career with us, never quite fulfilled his potential due to some horrendous injuries that he suffered, sadly. Martin Britton, Now, he's got the honour of being a one-game wonder, not just for us, but also for Walsall and also for Newcastle United. How about that, eh? One-game wonder at 3 different clubs.
Didn't he play in the Europa League for Newcastle, or did I completely imagine that?
If he did, then he technically probably isn't a one-game wonder then, maybe, because he might play the Europa League and a league game. In terms of league games, he's very much a one-game wonder for all 3 clubs. Andy Cook, he had a fairly decent spell in League One with, in fact, was it in League Two? I can't remember, with Walsall, basically, a few years ago. Another Cook, Jordan Cook, he had some time at the Bescott Stadium. Matty Fryatt began his career at Walsall. Joined us, in fact, he joined us on loan, didn't he, in that season?
From Walsall.
From Walsall, the 2003-04 season. Only played, I think, 6 or 7 games, something, but he had a big impact, didn't he, even? You could see he was going to have a good career, couldn't you, at that point? I mean, back then, Walsall would have been a championship club, I think. So it's probably quite similar to when we got Coyote on loan from Rotherham in that sense. So, Matty Fryatt. Here's a blast from the past. Marc-Antoine Gabarsin, or Marco Gabarsin. Only played, I think he played 2 games for us, didn't he, I think? Gabarsin, I can't remember. Possibly, might be one.
Played once in the FA Cup at Torquay.
Yeah, and I think it might be the only game, actually. You might be right on that one. So there you go, Marco Gabarsin. If he had a longer spell at Walsall, did okay there, I think, and then obviously ended up leaving. Anthony Gerrard, I forget he had a spell at Walsall, actually. Again, what we do for a player like him right now?
Yeah.
Someone who just doesn't take any nonsense and just deals with it, basically. He just gets on with the game. Mark Gillespie obviously left the Blues to go to Walsall, doing all right for himself now. 3rd choice keeper at Newcastle United. In fact, he might even be 4th choice, but he's getting his chance right now. Kevin Harper. Remember him, Mike?
Yeah, under Neil McDonald.
Neil McDonald, he was a good little player, actually, wasn't he? He was one of those ones who would love to sign permanently, but his wage was just too much, I think, at that point. Carl Hawley began his career at Walsall, never made it there. Certainly did it for us. I've put this one in as a little joke. David Holsworth, less said about him, the better. Never played for us, but he's certainly enjoying himself right now. Kevin Hurst, he had some time at the Bescott. Bobby Hutchinson was a player who was with us in the late 80s, I think. Big Jabbo.
Yeah.
Oh, what would we do for a player like Jabbo right now as well?
I know.
Mathieu Manset. Yeah, he was one, remember, everyone got very excited about and never quite hit the height.
He had one sub-appearance where he completely changed the game.
Against Yeovil, wasn't it?
Else.
He absolutely bossed it. He didn't score, it was an own goal in that game, wasn't it? But interesting. One, Colin Methven, he had some time there. Derek Mountfield, Danny Naisbitt, Jason Price. Just invoke the Jason Price role any time with any club, pretty much he'll play for them probably. Mark Prideaux. Paul Simpson, he had a loan spell there, I think from Wolves possibly, before he went to Rochdale. To Blackpool, sorry. Grant Smith, Ray Train, Hayden White, and obviously previously mentioned Jimmy Whitehouse. Right, let's get on to the actual current Walsall team then, Mike. In terms of head-to-head, we've played them 61 times in our history, 19 wins, 19 draws, and 23 wins for the Saddlers. I mentioned sort of earlier that they're a side that kind of flattered to deceive a bit, haven't they, in recent seasons? They've never really been in danger of going down, but they've also sort of struggled to make a dent in the playoffs. But it looks like they might be finally starting to wake up this season, especially the way they've recovered in recent weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've always sort of seen them as similar in stature to us.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
The disadvantage they've got is they've got big clubs nearby, haven't they? But that's also an advantage in a weird way.
Yeah. But chalk and cheese to how they've been run, clearly. But
I think they've got. I mean, they may have a few off the field issues. They have done in the past years, but I don't know how bad they are now in that sense. But yeah, I mean, they're actually quite well placed in that sense, aren't they? With those big clubs nearby, to actually pick off a few loan players from some of the bigger clubs, your Wolves, your West Broms, your Birmingham Cities, your Aston Villa. So they do pick up a few decent loan players down the year, and they actually produce a few of their own, don't they? Troy Deeney began his career at Walsall, and Enrico Henry, who's tearing it up with Brentford in the Premier League now. He began his career with Walsall as well.
Carl Hawley as well came through their youth system.
Of course he did. They've always been one of the ones, because I don't know if they still are, but they were always in the same Youth Alliance League, weren't they, as us? And they were always a team that did really well, especially when Dean Smith was the youth team manager. Actually, he made a really big impact in that role for them, and I think that sort of set them in stead over recent years, hasn't it? The manager, Matt Taylor. No, I have not accidentally left the details in from last week's running order. For the second week in a row, we're facing up against a manager called Matt Taylor. This one, of course, is the former West Ham, Portsmouth and Bolton Wanderers midfielder. He was famed for scoring some spectacular long-range goals and free kicks, wasn't he, Mike? I remember back in the day. I remember that one he scored, I can't remember who it was against. It was for Portsmouth.
Like the halfway line volley, wasn't it?
Basically, he just sat up and he just said, I'm going to have a go here. And he just smashed it over the keeper. There was another one where I think he got Premier League goal of the month against Sunderland. Similar circumstances with a long-range effort. And he's got a few free kicks, obviously, as well. And it's his first full-time management job. He previously had a short spell as caretaker at Swindon Town. Then he was player-coach with the Robins for a bit. But his last role was actually under-18s coach at Tottenham Hotspur. And he started off a bit slowly in the hot seat, but he seems to be finding his feet. And he's an interesting appointment, isn't he? He's one of those ones you look at and think, well, that's an interesting one. The kind of thing I would have liked us to have done at some point recently, but we haven't really done that, have we? Yeah, a bit frustrating. Starman, I've picked out George Miller. He was a summer loan signing from Barnsley. He's a former Bury and Middlesbrough player, and he sort of struggled to live up to the early promise shown at the Shakers, hasn't it? Because I remember he was always a player who was a real thorn in our side for Bury, I'm sure, as well, wasn't he? Back in the day. I think he was a good player.
Yeah.
But he's moved to Middlesbrough, never really worked out. He joined Barnsley, and again there, he struggled to really get into the first team, but he settled in quite well into this loan spell after a patchy loan spell with Scunthorpe last season. But this season he's got 7 goals in, I think it's 13 appearances now. So he's certainly one that we'll have to keep an eye on. Looking through the squad, Mike, I've picked out some key squad members, but is there any in there particular that you've noticed that caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, they have a lot of kind of what we need. You know, players like Matt Sadler, he's getting on a bit, but proper experienced centre back. Stephen Ward, loads of experience at like championship level, hasn't he? Josh Labadie.
Well, the thing is with him, he's an absolute pain in the arse, isn't he?
Yeah,
and he can be a bit of a liability in terms of his temperament and his discipline.
But that is exactly what we need right now.
Yeah, you just need someone who's going to be a bit of a nutter in there. And he's going to probably, in the dressing room, be grabbing players by the scruff of the neck and saying, what the hell are you doing? Why are you not doing this and that? And that's what... You're absolutely right. That's exactly the kind of player we need in a weird way.
Yeah,
he's not someone I probably would have ever wanted us to sign in the past, but...
No.
Yeah, desperate times mean desperate measures, don't they, I suppose, in that sense. And
yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I mean... Look at the ones you picked. You're right with those ones. I picked out Ash Taylor as well. I thought he was a player we could have gone for, really.
Yeah, he looked really good at Tranmere a few years ago, and then he went north of the border, didn't he? And sort of faded a little bit.
I think at first, but he faded, didn't he? And he's come back down now to Walsall, and he's doing all right by all accounts. I mean, you're looking at attack. I mean, Connor Wilkinson, he was one of the star men at Leyton Orient last season. He scored that goal, didn't he, in the game where they beat us 1-0. And he's not quite hit the same heights with Walsall yet, but I think he's been more of a sort of almost like a target. I mean, he's been used as the player to, for players to play off a bit more, players like Miller. And obviously they signed Otis Carl as well, actually not too long ago, didn't they? And he's a player actually we nearly signed a few times in the past. And he's one I've always liked, a lively little winger. And yeah, it's just when you look through the squad, it's actually quite a decent mix, isn't it, of experience and youth. And as we mentioned, they always bring good young players through Walsall, so they're quite comfortable in that sense. And someone actually we didn't mention there, Hayden White. He is their right back, isn't he? Or one of their right backs at least. Anyway, they've got Zach Mills as well, who another good player at this level. So yeah,
I think Mills can play at centre back as well. I think
he can, yeah. But I suspect you probably more like to see Sadler and Taylor playing there potentially. I guess. And, it's certainly a squad where you look at it, it looks more robust than ours. Let's just say. I think it's fair to say.
Definitely.
I mean, in terms of current form, I mentioned it before, but they're sixth in the current form table. In the last 6 games, their record's 1 drawn, 1 lost, drawn, 1. That defeat came against Harrogate, funnily enough. They've and that's the only game they've lost in the last 9 matches, and that's lifted them up the table now. And they are, I think they're 11th at the moment at the table, possibly. I think. Yes, they're 11th in the table, 5 points away from the playoffs. Sutton United in that final playoff place right now. God. That shows how far we've dropped, doesn't it, really? But there you go. Let's get on to United then now, Mike. Injury-wise, it looks like Lewis Alessandro's going to have a lengthy spell on the sidelines, which, I mean, when we need an experience in the team, it's probably the last thing we want, really, isn't it? To have someone like him out for a long period. It looks like he's picked up a foot injury. It's going to rule him out for a while. Joe Riley's still struggling to shake off his foot injury, and Jack Armour missed the midweek game against Harrogate due to that gash on his leg. I'm hoping that's not one that's going to be long-term, that he can recover quickly from that one.
Gashes are generally not a long-term.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's quite sore at first, isn't it? And it's tough, but once it's gone, you're back at it, aren't you? And I mean, as well as that, obviously something I've been putting the running order, but Gimme Touré's back from his loan, but by all accounts, he's probably not going to be back for a bit as well, probably. And then obviously we mentioned before Norman Jensen and Dixon remain out of action as well, and John Mellish he served the second game of his 3-match ban, and this won't actually include the Lincoln game, I don't think, in the Peter Trophy, because that's a separate suspension thing, isn't it? I think.
I think
feeling. So. I seem to remember, because West Ham had an issue of a player being booked in 2 games and then being suspended in that competition, didn't they? I think that's why they got kicked out. So yeah, he's going to miss the Shrewsbury Cup game as well, which means he won't be back till the Mansfield game. You'd probably just play him in that Peter game that way, just to use him. But there you go. What do you do now, Mike? In terms of, like, if you Keith Millen, what do you do for this game? Because you've got no options.
Can we really make changes? No, I mean, fullbacks basically. It's got to be Dickinson and Mello, hasn't it? Based purely on injuries. Centre backs. To be honest, since Millen's come in, McDonald and Whelan have looked all right. Like,
what difference is? I mean, your only choices are Dinzey, it's like clearly not good enough, and Feeney. Well, what difference is Feeney actually going to make to that defence in comparison? I don't see it going to make any massive, huge difference to the overall way the team plays.
No, I mean, one thing that I have noticed with Feeney when he plays is he's a talker, which, you know, we could do with.
The only option I can see is maybe do you push Whelan into midfield?
Yeah.
And put Feeney at centre back and drop one of Devine or Guy?
Yeah, potentially.
But then if you do that, you think, why don't you just stick Charters in there? He's an actual midfielder.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you think.
Or both. Stick Whelan and Charters in midfield.
If you start doing that, then you basically might as well just go back to the old Tom Bowler days of girls' team selections. Is pointless. Midfield, again, what do you do? I mean, Gibson's going to have to start on the right, definitely. Do you maybe bring in Charters for either Clough or Devine, maybe? Maybe you can push Clough into the middle and just tell him just go and dictate play there. I always wondered, do you change formation? Do you move from 4-4-2? I know it's made it a bit more solid, but it's not created enough going forward. No. Do you maybe just go, right, we're going to go back to 4-3-3. We're going to pack the midfield, basically. And in terms of midfield, you just stick Charters, Guy, and I don't know, maybe you do push Whelan into there and go, right, we're just going to make it a bit more robust in there. And then up front, I'd probably play Fishburne. It's desperate. It shows you how far we've fallen. We're relying on an 18-year-old kid, but you might as well just try something different. Let him have a start up there.
Yeah.
And then stick Gibson on one wing and take your pick, or you put on the other.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Spin the tombola if you have to. That's genuinely what the point you're getting to. That's how desperate things are. I mean, Lewis Bell got himself onto the bench the other night, obviously because he was the last remaining fit player who hadn't featured. That's another thing I've got to pick Holdsworth up on. He banged on about how great Lewis Bell was, how what a brilliant talent we've got, and how, you know, and not funny. And this is not me criticising Lewis Bell, by the way. You know, it's not fair really on the expectations that's been dumped on him. If he's as good as Holdsworth said he is, why is he not making even the bench? Why is he not getting on and getting games?
Exactly.
If he's that good, he should be involved. And if he isn't that good, shut your mouth, Holdsworth, and stop talking nonsense and building players up to be what they're not.
Exactly.
Just because you want to basically get him flogged to make us an extra bit of money.
I think that's exactly what it was, yeah.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like I said, like you've got no other options. Basically, we know what the 18 is going to be because that's all we've got. So basically, you're just moving those bits around and trying to find something. Do you go free at the back even, maybe, and tighten things up big time? I don't know. Play Gibson in the centre and just give him a little bit more of a free role than the other two.
Yeah, you know, maybe sort of Dickinson is more of a wing back than a full back. Could be an option. Yeah.
And then basically, I don't know. Do you then bring in Feeney and go, free at the back with those three. I know it didn't work against Hartlepool, but just if it gets to the point now, you've got to try something different, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one where we've got to get 3 points. If we don't, we're in deep trouble, I think, and we're really in danger of being cut adrift from the pack.
Definitely.
Right, well, let's get on to predictions then, Mike. We've blabbered on long enough, I think. First up, Dan sent his predictions from his sun lounger, so here's what Dan had to say.
Ola from Tenerife, it's 24 degrees, so I'm fully looking forward to being back in time for the Walsall game, where it'll probably be about 3 degrees. Our luck's got to change, hasn't it? So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I'm going to go Clough to redeem himself after a bit of a poor performance midweek, and I'm going to go for the Fish to get the winner late on. Like, we're due a good 90th minute winner, aren't we? So 2-1 to us.
Wow. Okay, there you go. There's Dan, ever the optimist. Mike, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for 1-0 with Dickinson on the score sheet for us.
Okay, very, very blunt and to the point. I'm going to do a first here. I'm going to go for a 2-1 loss.
Oh.
2-1 loss. Young to get the goal. Probably an own goal, to be honest. It probably won't even be one of our players that scores it. But yeah, that's how I feel. I don't feel confident we're going to win it. I'm not, as I mentioned before, I'm not actually going to the game after. Basically, I'm going to a gig that was supposed to take place a year and a half ago, but obviously got rearranged due to COVID. And I probably could. It's in Edinburgh, so I probably could have done it and gone straight up to Edinburgh after the game and gone to the gig, but I can't be bothered. I'm going with a mate, and he's not really that fussed on Cal United, so I don't think he'd be pretty happy about having to go to watch that match before we went through. So there you go. Glad to see you two are still optimistic, but I'm going for a 2-1 defeat, and I'm hoping that I'll be the one that helps break the cycle by going for that and it being an actual win. Probably be a draw
Fingers
now.
Crossed.
0-0 draw, no look.
Well, I mean, we're at the point where, a draw wouldn't be a bad result, but we need wins, you know.
We just need to scab 1-0 wins as often as we can and just defend like hell after that. Okay, let's get on to the X-File section. Obviously, Dan normally does this, but he's away, so I'll pick it up. Goals and cards, this week. No red cards or anything like that. But Paddy Madden, he scored a brace at the weekend in Stockport County's 2-1 win over Woking. That's when I keep seeing names like Woking and stuff like that. It makes me think, oh God, that's where we're going to be going next season, isn't it, at this rate? Adam Campbell, he scored in Gateshead's 2-1 win over Spennymoor Town there in the playoffs in the National League North. Could be playing them as well. Could be playing Chorley. You never know. Tom Lawrence, he scored a brace in Derby's surprise 3-2 win over Bournemouth. And finally, in terms of goals, we've got to give this a good mention, this one, haven't we, Mike? Cole Stockton scored a 94th minute winner from the halfway line in Morecambe's 2-1 Lancashire Derby win over Fleetwood Town. If you have not seen this goal, go and find it. Just search Cole Stockton on Twitter or whatever, or even look on YouTube for Morecambe's official highlights. Because oh my word, what a goal this is!
It's. I mean, obviously the shot was very good, but his strength to sort of shake off the man before he took it on. Where was that Cole Stockton?
It's so annoying. Every time he scores, I get a little bit more simmering rage of why the hell didn't you do that for us, you little shit? But
because I mean, to be fair, I haven't really seen anyone saying, "Oh, I can't believe Carlisle let him go," kind of thing, like we have with other players. Yeah,
because we know how bad he was for us.
He was absolutely awful for us, but yeah, it's
just. I mean, it's a brilliant finish because one, it only goes just under the crossbar, so he put it in the perfect spot. The keeper's well off his line, but the keeper's getting nowhere near it because he hit it so well.
Yeah,
and he doesn't really have time to think about it. He just turns and then goes. It's like he's had a look and seen the keeper's off his line. Thought, if I can turn quickly here and get a shot off, I can score.
But that is a striker playing with confidence, isn't it?
Playing with confidence and intelligence. And you don't see that with our strike force.
No.
What you'd give for a Cole Stockton like that with us now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Anyway, in terms of other news, there's quite a few bits actually this week. Clint Hill, he's left Hartlepool United already after 41 days. He's joined Dave Challoner in moving down to Stockport County to take on the role as assistant manager for him there. Keith Curl, this one broke today actually. Keith Curl has left his role as Oldham manager by mutual consent alongside assistant Colin West after just 8 months in charge. Apparently they're looking for the 10th manager since that fella took over at Oldham Athletic.
In 2018, that was. So
that's just...
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those ones. I hate it when our club, our owners all say, oh, we could be Bury, we could be Darlington, we could be whatever. But there is a little bit of part of me that goes, we could be Oldham. But at the same time, we're down there with Oldham, so we can't really crow about it. If we're being honest, that's the reality of it. Danny Livesey, he's in caretaker charge at Chester FC. They let go their joint managers early today, didn't they? Interesting stuff. I hope Danny does well there. Marcus Dewhurst, who was obviously on loan was last season, he's joined Boston United on loan. It's a difficult one for being a young keeper, isn't it, really? Because you often have to just drop down to non-league level just to get games, don't you? If you're a Premier League
and that's the thing as well. Young keepers, they're going to make mistakes. Any young player is going to make mistakes, but keepers, their mistakes are going to cost you games, and it's hard to sort of get a good run in a side if you're making bad mistakes as a keeper. It's
sad, really. It's one of those ones where if we built up a decent relationship there, we probably could have got Marcus back this season, but I think Beach screwed that over with the way...
Could he play up front?
Yeah, possibly. I was just thinking, obviously, when we brought Jensen in the summer, but there you go. And just a last little bit, I mean, this is just a little bit of speculation here, but Chris Beach is the favourite for the Fleetwood job after Simon Grayson departed from that role earlier today.
Yeah, but I mean, it's day one bookies odds, isn't it? So
it is, but they were keen on him in January, and, he might just argue, well, look, what can I do? I had, a bit of finance taken from me at Carlisle, I had a director of football who was interfering or something like that. That's all he has to say, and maybe they go, well, fair enough, we'll give you a chance. Local lad as well. Won't be a massive wage. I'm just hoping, because one, it'll take his wage off our books, because I've no doubt we're probably just still paying him rather than paying him up. It's the cheapest option for any club to do these days. And two, there's every chance he might come and take some of the dross off us with him to Fleetwood come January, with any luck. So there you go. That's the end of today's episode, Mike. Thanks once again to our sponsors, the London Branch. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast and give us a review as well. Any good podcast app, Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, things like that. Basically, just search for Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and every time a new episode comes out, it will go straight into your inbox. And obviously, you can follow us on social media at Brunton Bugle on Twitter. Search for Brunton Bugle on Facebook. We're there as well. We're also on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group and on the Cumbrians.net message board. And you can email us if you want to go the old-fashioned way, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. In terms of upcoming episodes, at the moment, the only one we've got firmly penciled in is the FA Cup preview next week. Hoping to get an old friend of mine on to discuss that, because I've got a friend who's a Shrewsbury fan that I haven't seen for years because we haven't played them for years. So it'd be good to catch up with Dale possibly for that. But yeah, and the state of the club one, we really do need to do that, because it's getting to the point now where I think we're all simmering. It's actually been quite a good thing that we've left it a little bit, because we're all starting to get a little bit more angry about it. And I think it'll be an interesting one, that one, won't it, Mike? Hope springs to eternal though, doesn't it? Hopefully we can get 3 points at the weekend and start to turn things around. I mean, I'm not that confident. So frustrating after that Exeter game though, isn't it? Because we both came away from that thinking, you know what, maybe, just maybe, if we keep working hard like this and getting up teams, you never know. But it's just exposed just how toothless we are, isn't it?
It really has.
Oh well, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks once again, Mike, for joining me, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.